India's national flag carrier says it has obtained permission from Saudi Arabia to fly between New Delhi and Tel Aviv over Saudi airspace. Air India says the new flight route will help save 2 hours of travel time. Air India plans to operate flights 3 days a week starting March 22nd. Israel's El Al Airlines is also reportedly lobbying to access Saudi airspace. The decision by the kingdom to allow Air India to use this airspace effectively ends a 70-year ban, further signaling a diplomatic shift in policy towards Israel. The once clandestine Riyadh-Tel Aviv ties are becoming more apparent, with Saudis willing to turn a blind eye to Israel's widely condemned policies in the region, particularly in Palestine. Joining us live now from Washington, D.C. is Mr. Michael Springman, who is a former U.S. diplomat in Saudi Arabia. Mr. Springman, thanks for joining us. How significant do you think this permission by Saudi Arabia is to use its airspace for flights to Tel Aviv?
It's very significant, even though they won't come out and admit to it. They sort of doing this dance about, well, we can't really confirm that, but it looks like a sure thing. And it's surprising in that India opposed recognition of Israel back in 1948 and opposed their entrance into the United Nations. But as years went by, the Indians began needing weapons to fight the Pakistanis, and Israel supplied a lot of them. As time went by, India became very interested in Israeli weapons and trade with Israel and so forth. And with the new prime minister in India, this Modi fellow, who took office in 2014, he's personally pushed closer and closer ties between the two countries. And he says that we need Israel's defense abilities, we need Israel's intelligence capabilities, and we need trade and high technology. But the interesting thing is that Israel is doing very well at splitting the Arab world and splitting the South Asian world. They're deeply involved in Syria. They're deeply involved in northern Iraq. Now they're becoming deeply involved in India. And, you got to look at the fact that Israel and India, two nuclear-armed states, are working together and opposed to Pakistan, another nuclear-armed state, as well as China's growing influence in the region, and China is also armed with nuclear weapons. So I think this looks to be a very bad combination, and while trade and investment might be good things, trade and investment between two hostile nuclear-armed powers are not. And of course, India is now withdrawing its support for Palestine and what's being done to the Palestinian people and their dispossession of their own territory. So it's a very bad combination, and I don't see anything good coming of it.
Do you think, Mr. Springman, that the people in places like Saudi Arabia are ready for this sort of, if I may use the term, diplomatic overtures between the likes of Tel Aviv and Riyadh at this time? Or do you think that the diplomats and the royals in the region are pushing this too far?
Well, I think they're pushing it too far, but they're doing it pretty much in complete isolation from the rest of the people of Saudi Arabia. The Saudis, when I was there, were seen as a minority in their own country. They had hired Indonesians and Filipinos and Pakistanis and so forth to work in their businesses. And the average Saudi is very much isolated from the government, and it's his interest not to question too deeply because he can disappear into a prison someplace. The CIA base chief in Jeddah, Eric Qualkenbush, said that Saudi Arabia is a well-administered police state. So it's basically the guys at the top are running the show with no concern for the people at the bottom.
All right, Mr. Springman, we'll leave it there at that. But of course, as always, we appreciate you sharing your insight with us.